2020 has been an interesting year, to say the least, and with all the chaos going on in the world have come some, perhaps, unintended consequences that have made it harder for people, successful people as well as everybody else, to be free, to explore other options, to go where they're treated best. I'm going to talk about some of the ways that governments have stopped you this year from going where you're treated best, and I'm going to share an article from one country that's making it even harder than ever for you to leave. I'm Andrew Henderson, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we've taken my over a dozen years of experience on the ground in countries all around the world, building a network of experts, building a team of almost 30 people to help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now, 2020 has been an interesting year. The U.S. government, for example, if you want to renounce your citizenship, it's been harder than ever because embassies and consulates simply don't make appointments. The ones they make, they generally cancel. And so if you've wanted to expatriate from the United States for good, whether it's for the oft-touted tax reasons or whether you're just someone like me who just realizes the country's heading in the wrong way and I just want a sense of peace being away from this, even though my taxes were already pretty low overseas, if that's you have a hard time doing that. And I've talked to people this year who wish they could renounce for whatever reason. You're certainly entitled to renounce for the sole goal of saving money on tax. You don't have to stay there if you don't want. And so they said, actually you do, because we're not honoring your appointment. Coming in, signing 2 forms, raising your hand, and handing them some cash is too much for them to handle. So you can't renounce. And we've seen, of course, if you have only one passport and your country didn't handle things with the pandemic to the liking of other countries, you simply can't travel. Now, I'm all for countries saying, here's what we allow and here's what we don't allow. It's why I say, if you're not a citizen of a country, you have no guaranteed right to get into that country, which is why having at least 2, potentially multiple citizenships is not a bad idea. You've got a place to go. If your citizenship country descends into chaos or becomes a financial nightmare, you've got somewhere else where you can go, and you can choose to be a citizen of both or at some point to get rid of one of those if it no longer serves you. And so we've seen travel restricted. We've seen people not be able to go overseas to do things like open bank accounts. I've been working with some of our lawyers around the world in some countries to allow bank accounts that require physical presence to be opened through power of attorney. But not every bank allows that. And so not every investment opportunity allows you to do that. In countries like Cambodia, for example, you need to go, if you're buying a property, and put your fingerprint on the title. You've got to be there. And so there are lots of opportunities to be overseas, including just living overseas to reduce your taxes, but also just diversifying and having a plan B that have been made a lot harder because you can't get in other places right now. Certain countries like Australia have closed down and said, if you're a citizen, you can't leave. And so that is definitely concerning. But here's an article I came across the other day in Cambodia in the Phnom Penh Post. Now, I have investments in Cambodia's capital of Phnom Penh, so I found this interesting. And the title of the article is, Vietnam sets new rules for individual overseas real estate investment. And the article says individuals will no longer be allowed to invest in real estate abroad if a new draft decree issued by the Ministry of Planning and Investment is approved. The regulation is aimed, listen to this, at preventing individuals from investing in real estate in foreign countries for the purpose of obtaining citizenship, according to the ministry. The country of Vietnam does not want its citizens to have a second citizenship. Now, there are a number of countries where you're not allowed to have second citizenship, and people will often move to the UK where they'll invest in bonds and get a visa and just have basically permanent resident status, or they'll become a permanent resident in Greece or some other European country to have access to that. So certainly, countries that don't allow dual citizenship, that's been a thing for a while, although we've talked about how the trend is generally towards allowing dual citizenship with more countries opening up to it. But now you see an example of just one country, and I realize it's hard sometimes if it's not your country to say, well, that's just what's happening somewhere else, but this is what's happening all over the world, just in different ways. Vietnam is just approaching it differently. If you live in our country, we're going to make a law to where you're forbidden to own real estate overseas. You can't have a plan B. And their stated purpose is because people are buying real estate in Turkey. They're buying real estate in St. Kitts. They shouldn't be, but they are. They're buying real estate in Latvia to get that residence permit or to work towards citizenship. And the government doesn't want that, right? They don't like the idea of people being dual citizens. Now, I've been to Vietnam. I like Vietnam. I think it's in a lot of ways moving the right direction. It's an interesting, candidate. But what I've said about Asia is not only is it very difficult to become a citizen of almost every Asian country, but I probably wouldn't want to be a citizen of almost any Asian country because they are a bit more restrictive towards their citizens. And so why is it that you can't own property overseas? Do you think that this will be the first and last country to do that? It's one thing to say we don't allow dual citizenship, and then you can simply decide. It's another thing to say you can't have a plan B. And here's why I particularly find this concerning as someone who's done this. Not as a guy who sells it to people, and not as some Belgian guy who sits in an air-conditioned office in Dubai and sells Indian immigrants passports with pictures of beaches. But as someone who has actually done this, here's what I know from real-world experience, is that if you don't have a home and familiarity in another place, you are going to be less likely to leave when you feel it's time to leave. How many people, particularly where I come from in the United States, have told me, I will leave when things get bad enough? And you've heard that from some of them for decades. I know people who were looking at leaving the United States in the 1980s. When things get bad enough, they'll leave. You're telling me there aren't enough things that have gone wrong since the 1980s that it's time to leave yet? But here's the missing piece. Maybe they've gone on vacation, but they've never committed the time to spend somewhere else. They don't have a place where they can go. They can't visualize what it would look like. And so emotionally, I totally understand. I understand that if you don't know, hey, we're going to go to the beach house in Portugal, and we know that we have the nice fluffy towels and the pool's ready, and we know who to call to turn the cable on and whatever else, then you're going to be less likely to do it, and you're going to sit where you are, and you're going to continue to rationalize why it's okay to stay. You're going to continue to complain about politics and say, oh, but it's okay. And the government is going to make it more and more difficult for you to leave. What happens when you leave? Well, generally you take your money or at least part of it with you. That means less they can tax, less they can take, less they can control. They certainly can't control you anymore, and so now you're getting a taste of the freedoms that exist beyond your own borders. I speak as someone who comes from the West. I believe freedom in the West is going down. I believe you've got a target on your back now if you're wealthy, not just in the US, not just in Canada and Australia. Now countries like Spain, other European countries are coming out for the first time that I've seen in a while, and they're literally saying, we're not in this together. It's you, wealthy guy. Only you are going to pay. This populism where successful people bear the brunt of everything, now they're going to say, okay, you can't even take the money that you've earned, even after we've taxed the heck out of it. You can't even take that money and buy property overseas, certainly not to get a citizenship, but even to have a place where you can go and live so that you feel comfortable leaving this country once you've been used and abused. You're going to see more of this. I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I'm not a conspiracy, go and live in a bunker and store seeds guy. But I see what governments are doing, and I've looked at this for years. I don't like to talk about negativity. I like to live in my nice, clean, very tax-friendly, happy world of freedom. But I'm telling you, if you are in one boat, if all of your eggs are in one basket, you're going to see more things like this coming out. You're going to see the embassy say, you can't leave. You're also going to see the embassy say, by the way, you can't get a passport. How many people do I know in the US? Passport office is closed. Even if I could travel anywhere, can't get a passport. It's happened all around the world. And there's always going to be a convenient reason. Oh, there's a pandemic. Oh, there's a health issue. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's this. I'm not trying to diminish the effects of some of the things that happen, but I realize that governments like to cling to excuses. I'm working. My team is working. We worked from home for many months. Nothing stopped. We didn't stop accepting appointments. We've been here. We've been having a great year. And so this idea that nobody can process 2 pieces of paper, it's ridiculous because they don't want to. They want you to stay, they want to control you, and they want to take more of your money. This is why I've said I had a plan B. I have plan B, C, and D for myself, which is why I feel comfortable. But I'm sharing this with you not because I like to dwell on the negativity, because quite frankly I don't. but I believe it's important that you know some of the ways that they are using to come after you and make it harder for you to have a backup plan. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.